vehicle as a sales rep for P&G was a Bedford D40 truck, right, that carries 300 cartons from where I had my 504 saloon and my secretary and everything. So basically, looking on the outside, it felt like a demotion to everybody else. And I made the decision. And no one person that I spoke to told me I was making the right call. But there was a simple thing at the back of my mind when I was making that decision. And the simple thing I said, when I look at the guys, yes, I had a rapid career. In 1.5 years, I had been promoted to branch manager. But I said, when I look at the guys in front of me, do I see anybody I want to be like? And the question is no. Procter & Gamble, from all my reading, I understand they develop people, and they're the world's most foremost consumer products company. So I asked myself, if I can't take a risk with somebody that will build me now that I'm 25, is it when I'm going to be 40 that I'm going to be taking the risk? And so the only way I rationalize is, you know what, some of your mates are still, there are people your age who are still in the university. So just consider it that you are in final year. If it doesn't work out after 1 year, you will come back and go and start again. 6 months later, that 20% salary cut that I took, I had a 100% salary increase based on performance. Another 6 months later, I had another 50%. I was then promoted back, and then the 504 that I had before came back to me. But the most important thing was the level of development, the investments they made in my training and development, and the opportunities I had to learn and visit and work in other countries that built me to where I am till today. All the jobs I have done is based on that solid foundation that I took the chance on. If I was driven by the fact that you have plenty of people to cater for, you have this, and you need the money, therefore this 20% pay cut you can't afford, I would have made the wrongest decision, and I would have been paying for it. Because I know some of my peers who were in, and when I told them and I asked them, why are you guys not looking for it? And they said, no, right? Some of them are still in that same situation today. So, what guides your choices? Is it the circumstances, the environment, or are you guided by clarity of purpose? What stops you from thinking that you're a victim? Oh, my father didn't go to school, my parents didn't give me this, I don't have this, I don't have that. It's all bullshit. For every person in Nigeria, because my parents didn't have money, I didn't go to school, I can bring another person who is in school despite the fact that his parents did not take him to school. There are people who hawk. I have colleagues we've recruited who hawked to pay their secondary school fees and universities, and today they're paying school fees of other people. It's what you think. So how do we stop being victims and stay in control of our lives, of our careers, of our businesses? And the critical thing is driven by your thinking. Like it says in Proverbs, as a man thinketh, so he is. And the very simple thing, it comes with jobs, right? Because I see a lot of people say, you need to know somebody. In the last 14 years, all the organizations I've worked for, you do not need to know anybody to get in there. The chairman cannot recruit somebody if you don't pass the test. But if your mindset is, I must know somebody, what will you spend your time doing? You'll spend your time looking for who to know. If your mindset is, I will be one of those, I need an opportunity to pass, to write a test. And you know what, if you give me that one chance, there's no way they will drop you. You will start to reinforce that. And this is where your network of friends matter. After my NYC, we had a group, there were like 7 or 8 of us. At that time we might have appeared arrogant, but we had this belief, you will not invite us for a test and we will fail. Because we sat down, we prepared, we coached each other, we encouraged, we found opportunity. We didn't have the internet today. I used to go to the library 3 times a week because I couldn't afford all the papers, to copy and see what the vacancies are, and that's how we shared. Then we started to focus. Why? Because I had it at the nobody is going to give me a job on a platter of gold. The only thing I told myself is if I went to anybody, I said, just give me the chance and invite me. If you invite me, there's no way I will not cross through that stage. If you don't recruit me after that stage, it's okay. Maybe I don't fit what they're looking for. Because you also have to understand that. I did an interview where I came out and I knew that they were not going to recruit me. We started from over 5,000 candidates to 600 to 30 to we were the last 10. And when they asked the question, immediately I answered because they asked, okay, what are your plans for the future? Oh, and I had these big plans. And the moment I started talking about the big plans, I saw their faces change. They wanted somebody who was going to be sat in the factory forever. And here I was talking about after 2 years, I expect I should do this, I'll go and do this, I'll go and do this, I'll go and do this. So the moment I came out, and my friend asked me, how was it this? I said, boy, they're not going to take me. They say, why? I say, I know these people. They won't take me. There's a company that is coming after me. As a youth corper, I went to apply. I was begging to be given a chance to write the test. I never got the opportunity to write the test. Today, they're coming after to say, we want you to come and become the managing director of that company. The gap between that time and today is what is the focus or the investment or the choices that I have made. As a man thinketh, so he is. Imagination is everything in terms of what Albert Einstein said. What do you think of yourself? Do you allow your environment? Do you allow, oh, my house, our neighborhood, this, that, that? A lot of my friends in school thought that I came from very rich family because I never believed, I never looked at myself as that. I remember the first time I wanted to go and take my wife out on a date. And of course I entered, I was still trying to chase her. And I took a taxi. Okay, you didn't come. I said, no, it's company car, it's not my own. And it's my Oga. My Oga is the one using it. So this is what I have. But I know that in a short while, I'm going to get something that will give me my own. 6 months later, I was promoted. I had my own official car. And I was complaining that the work was too much. She was the one that reminded me. You told me that well, the car comes with the extra wahala, so you have to learn to live with it. Your thinking is at the heart of everything. This is a simple formula of life. Your thinking determines the actions that you will take. And the actions you take is the results or whatever you get out of life. If you don't fix that, you're not going to fix anything. So most times we try to go and solve here. Try to fix here, and that's why we don't get the results on a sustainable basis. The reality is here. The first thing you have to think, what is driving your thinking? If you don't fix or change your thinking, right, you will not change the kind of results that you have. I see people, oh, I can't get a job, I just finished, so let me go and do a master's, because if I get a master's, it will give me a better job. No, that thinking is flawed. Because nobody promotes you because you have a master's. If you say, whilst waiting, I don't want to waste time, so let me be doing something, that's a different thinking, right? But it doesn't give you a sense of entitlement, which is what knocks a lot of people down. Don't allow your environment or circumstances to define you. That I come from one corner of Oron doesn't mean that I am defined by that corner. Yes, I'm a proud son of Oron, but I'm also a citizen of the world. And I have to prepare myself to take advantage of the opportunities that the world has to offer. That's the kind of thinking that allows you to focus on what? Let me acquire the kind of knowledge that is critical for survival, that is critical to solve the problems that the world is willing to pay for. Some of us go, we learn some things we want to do. Take simple basic stuff. Masons. We go and bring masons from Togo Republic. Why? Because we don't have good quality people. It's not because we don't have the capacity. We're too much in a hurry. Somebody goes to learn mechanic. After 3 months, he wants to do freedom. You go to learn tailoring. After 3 months, you want to do freedom. So guess what you'll be doing? You'll be doing trial and error. How many people know the designer Maya Tafo? We used to work together in BAT. And whilst we were in BAT, he used to make clothes for someone because he loved to make clothes. In Guinness, the same thing. But he was working and learning the skills of marketing and branding and all of that. And when he decided, you know what, this is what I want to do full time, he spent an awful amount of money to go to Italy, to go to Milan, to learn how to cut properly. So, Udoh will charge you 50,000 for wedding gown. Maya will charge you from 500,000 and above. And let people buy. But he made the investment. The skill he acquired from where he worked in terms of branding, brand management, building his business is what he's applying, and that is what is making him a successful entrepreneur. Do you acquire the skill? Knowledge put into practice is skill. How many of you will enter a plane where they say the pilot had a first class but he has never flown a plane? Because it's not about how much you scored. Knowledge is skill put into practice. So if you don't practice it, it will not happen. And when you try to practice it, you will struggle. And you know, some of the challenges we face sometimes is because we see the output that people have and we think that life is like that. So everybody sees Lionel Messi. Oh, Messi is fantastic, and okay, me too, I know how to dribble, therefore, you know what, it's very easy, I'll follow football as a career and all of that. It's not exactly like that. Messi has from age 9 been learning how to play. Not just how to play, how to think. And how to play together with other people in the same field. Most of all, you've got to have the right attitude. And the point Charles made when he talked about customer service is to recognize that it is when you serve people, when you do things, people reward you when you do things for them and how you make them feel. If you get these 3 things right, these are the actions you focus on, you will always get the right results. It might take time, but that's what has to be at the heart of what governs everything that you do. So, as a man thinketh, so he is. If you think that you require connections, you will spend your time looking for connections. If you believe there are opportunities for skilled people, you will spend time building your skills so that when the opportunities come, you will get it. Again, very simple. This is just to buttress that our thinking affects the outcome. This is a quote from Maraboli. I think it's somebody who's written quite a lot of books and gone through a lot of things in Modi. The victim mindset dilutes the human potential. By not accepting personal responsibility for our circumstances, we greatly reduce our power to change them. So the challenge I will throw to you guys is, are you a victim or are you a victor? When you face a challenge, are you blaming people? Are you blaming ancestral spirits? There's no witch in the village. There's no old woman in the village. It is in your mind. When I was very small, we were in barracks, and we will see in those days, it's not today people started doing bad things. You see money, you see a ring, you see lizard head, you see some of these things, and then they'll tie money together. And the children will be running away from it. Then they'll call me and my younger brother. We are the ones who we'll just kick all of those things away and collect the money and put in the pocket. We're still alive. So maybe those things, the expiry date of the juju has not reached. But it's very simple. And it was ironic, the people who believed those things. It is ironic, the people who believe those things. So, are you a victim or are you a victim? It's something that you're responsible for, and it's something that if you don't change, it will not, you're not going to find a difference in your life. So, If we understand that thinking is critical, right, our thinking, I think we've got to understand, and is that with a lot of our young people and today in Nigeria, do we truly understand what money is? Because I think we have it wrong, and that's why people put the wrong focus. Money, first of all, simply is a means of exchange of value. It's not the paper, right? It is a means of exchange of value. And you start to build wealth when you create value on a sustainable basis. So, when somebody gives you 10 naira for a sachet of pure water, it is the value that he has ascribed to that sachet of pure water. Meanwhile, the sachet of pure water is 500 cl. A bottle of pure life, which might be less, costs 100 naira. What is the difference? What makes the difference? The water is the water. Packaging. Why is it just the packaging? What does the packaging depict to you? Is it just class? It is authenticity, it is the brand, it is trust. If you spend effort in building authenticity and cultivating trust and value, people will pay a premium for it. People pay for two things: what you do, tangible benefits, and how you make them feel, emotional benefits. The more the level of emotional benefit to your service or a product, the higher you're able to charge. How many people take a selfie and put in front of their mirror and show the sign of their technophone? How many? Instead, even if we are using a technophone but we have an Apple cover, right? And we take it and so the Apple cover shows. Why? Go and check the specs. You might find out that the camera on your technophone might even be better than the camera on your Apple. The Apple works. Less breakdown, less time for it to hang. So they've made sure that it works. But most of all, they've invested in building the emotional benefit. The same, somebody, rather than take 10 million, right, to go and buy a brand new Kia, will take 14 million to go and buy a 2015 or 2012 Range Rover. They both have air conditioners. They will take you from point A to B. The newer one gives you less value. Why is somebody willing to pay 17 million naira for a 5-year-old car, not willing to pay the same for a brand new car? It's tangible benefits and emotional benefits. So the more you focus on creating that, that's how you earn money. Yes, the challenge we have is because in our society, people are stealing value. We assume that that's what it is in the normal world, and we focus on those guys. So we had the case of the 77 guys that have been floating around, right? The 77 people who have been floating, and some of them are running foundations or whatever. And you know what? Because we don't think deep, we don't scratch underneath the surface, we get easily fooled by what appears to be signs of success. You know, it's like people come in and say, oh, give me 10,000, I will give you 13,000 immediately. If you understand the concept of money and how money works, you'll understand that that is not an area where you can create wealth. It will help you in making your choices in life. Again, as a sales rep, I was managing a depot in Jos, and one guy walks into the depot one day and he says, look, I'm somebody who does export and this and that and that and that. I export stuff to Niger Republic. I want to buy from you. But I'm in a hurry now. Can you come and see me later in the evening? Let's talk about it. Give me your address to your house. And so when I went, he said, look, to Niger. And the first thing that came to my mind is, because again, you say, if you have a service culture, if you export to Niger, the best place for you to get our products is from Kano, because it's easier for you to deal don't want to go to Kano because this is my operational base and I prefer to do everything. Okay, but first red flag. And whilst we were sitting and talking about it, one guy comes in. To cut the long story short, this guy was supposed to have helped this guy crossing the border. The guy came, he ran away with something. He left something as surety. The guy now came and wanted to collect it when he was not around. So they were acting drama in front of me. I was 25 years old in a house, fenced. I didn't park my sales van inside. I parked it outside. They said, park inside. I said, no, I'll park. To cut the story short, they ended up them washing money in my presence. The highest currency in Nigeria then was 15 naira, right? And so in that box was supposed to be paper for, there was 500,000 units, which was 25 million. My salary was 3,500 naira per month. What do they need? Money to get the chemicals so that we can wash the balance. Why did they pick me? Was it because they love me? No. They had done their homework. They know he's in charge of a sales depot. He sells, he has money. So instead of depositing the money, just bring small. We'll wash it and we'll replace it. That's the story. I looked at them, I said, look, I'm very happy with my salary, and I know if I work hard, I will make what. I've heard people make money like this, so you, two of you can share 12.5. I am not interested. But if you want to come and buy Always and Pampers, you know where my office is, you can come and have that conversation. That's how I left. But I know a number of salespeople who have been caught in that trap, right? Because they wanted to make money that doesn't exist. Money is a means of exchange of value. If value has not been created, you should not expect to earn money. You've got to get that in. If you have that in your thinking, it will help you to make the right choices. Like Einstein said, it is better to be a man of value than a man of success. Because the way the world defines success is depending on where you are. So once you bring money in and you start to spray, everybody says you can. That you create stays forever. And guess what? If you create true value, you actually earn money. There was a list that was published recently on LinkedIn and people were surprised. Do you know what the salary of the highest earning MD in Nigeria is? 667 million naira per annum. Can't make money by working for somebody. That's somebody's 1 year salary. 667. The next person was 447 million. And they're quite enough. Okay, I never reached there, but we are working towards that direction. But it is the 667 does not fall just like that. Every he will go to bed sleeping well because he has not stolen anybody's money. So we've got to understand where value resides. Critical to understand money, and then the next thing is to find out who you are. And I think the exercise that Charles tried to do is critical, because if you find out who you are and why you exist, you can then focus to find out the best. It's critical to understand purpose. Life is about choices. Wherever we are at any point is a cumulative of the choices we've made in the past. It's critical we know who we are, because when you find out who you are, it actually frees you. This is one of my favorite quotes from Mark Twain. The two most important days in anybody's life is the day you are born and the day you find out why. Because that day you start to live. Because that's what starts to make life work in a purposeful manner. It is critical because when you make choices, this will be driven by your purpose. And the earlier you understand that, the earlier you find that, it will help you. I've had instances in my career where, in fact, one of the crazy instances, the guys offered me 3 times my current salary and I said no. And they were shocked. Because the first time they came, I said no. They came back 6 months later to say, look, it's not just about the job. You know, do you know what we're talking about? We're talking 3 times your current pay. I thought about it for like 20 seconds and I still said no. Sometimes I still kick myself wondering whether am I still sound? Have they not done? But you know, you make decisions that are long term. Because I've seen people again decision because the amount of money seems so good, and 6 months later they were out of that particular job, and actually to get out of the challenge, the mental damage it's done for them became something very, very difficult. It is that clarity that allows you choices that you need to. Best day in your life is the one in which you decide that your life is your own. No apologies and no excuses. No one to lean on, no one to blame, no one to rely. The gift is yours. It's an amazing journey, and you alone are responsible for the quality of it. In reality, that's the day your life really begins, when you decide that everything is within my control. And there are a couple of things you can do to find out. It's not something you can do in an exercise. It took me about 6 months to 9 months working with a coach to actually find out what my purpose really was, and then to crystallize it. But there are signs that go, if you go back through your life and you look at moments where you are happiest, when you did stuff. If you think of, if you didn't have to worry about money, what will you be doing if all your financial needs were taken care of? You may find out that that is pointing you in a particular direction, that this is what you're all about. But there are a couple of questions to ask. What do I really love? What am I good at? What does the world need? Now, there's things to understand. If you love something and the world needs it, but the world is not ready to pay for it, that's it's charity work. But you've got to be clear. Something. And the world is willing to pay for it. That's where business opportunity is. Right? And then, of course, I'm good at that. If all these 4 things happen, the reality in life is that of joy from writing. I do my current job well so that I can retain my current job, and the job takes care of me. But if you promote me, that promotion will take me away from what I love most, and I will struggle. Now, not too many of us are very open and honest to ourselves to be able to say that. So sometimes it happens that a job. So if you find someone like JJ Okocha, used to play football with a smile, right? He loved playing football. He was fantastic at it. The world paid him for it, and the world was willing to watch. So he had the best of everything. They win a match, they lose a match, he's smiling, he's happy, he's all of that. Asle Kuto, who played for Cameroon and who played in the Premiership, hates football. He doesn't watch football after training. He doesn't discuss football with anybody. For him, it's a job. I use that money and I take care of my family, and then he finds his pleasures and his passion somewhere else. John Travolta tells you the same thing. Acting is a job. What he loves is flying. So his acting pays for the things that he loves. So if you're going to have balance in your life, you've got to differentiate between what I do for a living and understand what I do and understand what each one of them is going to give you. There's nothing that stops you from being a security guard, because that's what pays my bill, and actually I'm a pastor of a 500-seater church because I have this passion to bring people and direct their lives. But if you think and you define yourself by being a security guard, you will never have capacity to lead those 500 people. You should not define yourself by what you do. It's critical to find your purpose, because you will not be limited by what you do. If I was, what will I say? Am I a biochemist? Am I a lawyer? Am I a marketer? Am I a salesman? Am I a public speaker? Am I a teacher? Because I've done so many things, and I'm doing so many things. Those things do not define you. Like Charles said, see us when we're playing football, you will not know. You will not know. Because completely different animals. We'll go to Mama Put, we'll sit down together, you will not know. So outside the office, people do not really know this is what my job is. It is not important. Not important. So you've got to divorce who you are from what you do and understand what one offers you. So it's critical to understand that. It's also critical for us to understand that it's natural for us to be different. Because sometimes when you are acting different from people, you think that, you know what, there's something wrong with us. First of all, our external environment and the circumstances in which we are, our standards have deteriorated. We do not have a culture of excellence. People say corruption is our problem. I actually think the biggest problem with Nigeria is a culture of mediocrity. Corruption is just a byproduct of the mediocrity. We accept things that are substantial. So when you try to do the right things, people will pull you down and make you feel that there's something with you. You've got to be bold to understand that it's okay to be different. Why do you conclude that it's natural to be different? There are over 7 billion people in the world. Everybody has a different eye scan. Every individual has a different fingerprint scan. If God wanted us to be the same, He will not have made us different. In scriptures that it says, appointed apostles, teachers, and whatever. Different roles because society has different needs. The temperament to be a doctor is different from that to be a lawyer, is different from that to be an engineer, is different from that to be a poet. Every role is what adds to make a society complete. To find out where is my place within that, and for me to excel in what I do. Why? Because it's very simple. Great things happen to you when you have the courage to be yourself. And that's the biggest challenge we face. We want to adapt. We don't want to be away from the other people. And in one of the words of Lao Tzu, because she competes with no one can compete with her. Stop that running around trying to be like everybody else. Understand who you are and what it takes. And this is just to help different and different people. Everyone success in their own field. Dangote, for all his wealth, cannot go and compete with Soyinka in the literary world. The lady here was the first lady mechanic in Nigeria, featured on CNN, has a workshop in Benin City, training a lot of women mechanics. Again, a mechanic, but has gotten world acclaim for what it does. Are you going to be the best in what you do? Guess what? The best teachers who build the best skills most times tend to go and set up the best schools. Their schools become renowned and they become wealthy as a result of that. Well, you've got to recognize that every voice has a different gestation period. It's like, again, nature. You plant harvest. If you plant cocoa, harvest in 3 years. Palm tree, you may not get your harvest until 5 years, but you then continue to harvest for 25 years. So the question to ask yourself is, am I planting corn, cocoa, or palm tree? So in between, if I'm planting palm tree, what do I do whilst I'm waiting for the harvest? Because you have to feed. That's the challenge that you have to deal with. But it shouldn't take away from your focus of what I'm trying to do is build something that is sustainable. So you can be successful in your own field the day you recognize that this is what I want to be, and I start to push that. The real challenge is how to be yourself, because the world is constantly trying to make you conform. If you're able to overcome that, then you find out that. So what does it take to be yourself? First thing we don't talk about is courage. It takes a lot of courage to be yourself, to lead. Because you're going to go contrary to everybody. The woman wants to pursue her career. Everybody is saying, go and get married. It takes courage for you to say, no, I have clarity of plans. One of the best examples I give to young women is the lady who was at one point the chairperson or president of FIRS, Ifeko Omogui, right? She built up her career as a consultant with Arthur Anderson and ended up becoming chairman of FIRS for Nigeria. She was still single. It is when she dropped that position she got married. So she's happily married. She's reached the height of her career. She's still having everything. And yet there are people who have their marriage certificate and have nothing else to offer. Meanwhile, they had the potential to be a lot more than that. It takes a lot of courage for you to decide that that's what you want to do. Some of us, our parents, I have mates, we work together in PN. He did law, finished law school, did a master's, went to drop the certificate at the foot of his father. He said, Father, I have satisfied you with what you wanted. He has never practiced law. And came in straight into sales in P&G. From P&G, he joined Schlumberger. From Schlumberger, he's in Shell. He has not practiced law for 1 day. It takes a lot of courage to be yourself. Like Mandela said, I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not fear, but he who conquers that fear. Why are we afraid that we will be cast outside if we choose to ignore our family, our friends, we choose to follow our career? Who has ever seen a successful person that has been rejected by his family? Any? Because success has so many parents, failure is an orphan. That's actually the fear you are dealing with. Are you afraid that you're going to fail? And what will they say? If you allow that fear to immobilize you, you will not make progress. That's the biggest challenge we have, to deal with that. Few people have the courage to appear as good as they really are. You will never do anything in this world without courage. In the words of Aristotle, it's the greatest quality of the mind next to honor. So you have to constantly think of, how do I fix that? How do I create that courage? And very simple. How you build courage is about faith. So again, the challenge I have with a lot of us, because a lot of us profess to be Christians, but we're the first people who show a lack of faith because we don't really believe. We just say it. You know, we appear religious. It's not a feeling. It's a choice to trust whether or not the road appears uncertain. So you have to walk courage. You have to find school fees in advance. So the real challenge for me is, can I find a job within 2 years? I say yes, but maybe job level might not be easy. So am I willing to take a lower job so long as it will pay me what I need? I say yes. And the moment I did that, that's it. So everything and the background. So people say you are not afraid they will say, you say things the way you like. I say yes. There are only two things I say you won't sack me for. One, that I have stolen money, or you found out that there was a deal or something and it was involved. And the second, that I was incompetent. My results may be bad. It happens. Sometimes you can do the best things and you have bad results. Right? So I can be sacked because the results are bad, and it's okay. I will not hold any grudge. Because if results go bad, it is natural to hold the person who is in charge responsible for the outcomes. So it's okay. We will not quarrel. But you will not sack me because you say I'm incompetent or because I've stolen money. And so long as you deal with those things, that's what makes sure we'll always hire you. Now, I've worked in companies. The last time I wrote a formal letter to apply to any company, every other job I have done, they came to look for me. And that is how you start to deal with things like fear. What is the cause of my fear? You've got to break it down. Why am I afraid? What is the cause of the fear? That's what you address. Because once you address that, it frees you up. Right? It frees you to be able to go and do what you want to do. You've got to build faith in yourself. Some of us are good. We don't understand how good we are. We listen to other voices. We dwell so much of some mistakes we've made in the past. Those mistakes reinforce and make us feel that, oh, you've done something. No. If I make mistake, I will beat myself up for 30 minutes, 1 hour when I'm analyzing it. After that, I have moved on. Me and Charles, fortunately or unfortunately, support the same. And when people are say they're beating us, we have a philosophy. If we win, we will drink beer. If we lose, we will drink beer. Life goes on. So, at the end of the day, yes, 20 minutes, so there's tension, there's this and that. Okay, the game is over. Can we do anything about it? No. So what should we do? Let's just go and drink. You've got to have that kind of approach to dealing with failure, right? I have made a mistake, hands up, analyze it, think of what you will do, and immediately you apply that lesson. The same way with success, or else you allow success get into your head. There are times when you will have succeeded, and not because you've done anything. Things have just in your lap. We had instances in my company where one quarter we had fantastic sales, and all the salespeople, when you ask them out, we're selling very well, what's happening? No, we're beating the competition. Then after 3 months, everything just went down. What's happening? The market is it. You know what really happened? The competitor's factory was flooded. They couldn't produce for those 2-3 months. That was when we had a bumper. And the moment they came back, we started to. If you do that, you don't help yourself take advantage of those opportunities. It is during those periods that you reinforce your fundamentals. Acknowledge, yes, I've gotten a good result, but the result is not because of me. So I need to keep on doing the things that are critical, or else you start to clap for yourself and you forget that you've got to do some of the right things. So you've got to build faith. You've got to build the confidence in yourself. You've got to create the picture of who you want to be. Let that picture be what guides you, not your circumstances today. Whether you think you can, you're right, and whether you think you can't, you're also right. Knowledge is a strong weapon against fear. In those days, we used to have evil forest, right? What was the evil forest? Anywhere nobody has grown beyond. We didn't know what it was. Today with GPS and whatever, is there any evil forest in the world? Knowledge is the strongest weapon against fear. So instead of being afraid, replace that your fear of the unknown with curiosity. And this is the way we should think about education. I like this quote from Martin Luther King. The function of education is to teach one to think intensely and critically. Intelligence plus character, that's the goal of true education. That's why when they're giving you your degree, the citation says you've been found worthy in character and in learning. Is that you've learned how to learn. Because when you go outside the school, your learning should be continuous. Now, I challenge that for a lot of us. Why? Because again, I look at during the Ebola crisis, how many people took about water? How many? Even a basic student will know that that is not true. So with the knowledge, what do? If we are confronted with things, we just react, or do we think through them? So you've got to change the way you react to things. Think first, decide, and then you act. But if you don't think, you're just going to follow everybody, and you're just going to make some wrong decisions. We like to do things sharp. So guess what? There are lots of people who have confidence and arrogance. Confidence and arrogance, we do the wrong things. Like I went to see, I was trying to perfect my game of golf, and he says, look, the mistake people do sometimes is that they've done the wrong thing. Though they want to practice, they keep on practicing the wrong thing, so you're reinforcing it rather than going back to the root to correct it, and therefore you start to make the right things. The question you've got to ask yourself is, are you unconsciously incompetent? We're incompetent, but we are not aware that we are, so we can't make a change. We've got to get to a point where we are consciously incompetent, so we know what we don't know, and we now strive to look for it. In the days of Google search and Wikipedia and everything, nobody has an excuse for not having access to knowledge. That's your data, is not to watch Z World and all the other things. Your data is to check up something that will allow you build yourself. So what does it take to be the best you and live your purpose? The first thing is focus on building the right skills. The quality of a person's life is in direct proportion to their commitment to excellence, irrespective of their chosen field of endeavor. If you are committed to excellence, right, in your chosen field, you will excel and you will be recognized. And very few people are courageous to appear as good as they are. What you've got to understand, for those who are looking for jobs, right, a lot of companies test you. And it's very simple. We're trying to understand whether your basic fundamentals are there. That's why most tests are centered around numerical reasoning, verbal reasoning, personal organization, and how you manage yourself. We all use this excuse, and I hear it from a lot of people. A test is not a true test of knowledge. Bullshit. Some of those things are not university level mathematics. They are basic numerical skills and analysis and statistics, things that you use in every day. If your fundamentals are not right, you will not get the job. You will spend time begging somebody. Again, simple formula that I used. During my NYC years, I had General Maths book 3 and 4. And I was going through all of those things, reading so that it became second nature. I stopped using calculators when I was a rep because I said I wanted to be used to doing sums in my head. Now, yes, I do, because I'm an old man, I'm entitled to use. But it's those kind of things. I played the crossword on the back of newspapers until I was sure of getting 95, 96, 97%. Why? I wanted to build the skill. Till today, I still have dictionary, word of the day. Every day, I'm building my skill in terms of words and vocabulary because critical. So, you've got to focus on that. But most of all, in the world of tomorrow, this has always been there and will always be. You know, technology is changing so many things. So what you know today can change tomorrow. What you need tomorrow can change day after tomorrow, but there are some things that will never change. Competence and character. The world will always need people who are competent and who have character. People who are strong communicators, because these are the ones that build bridges, because you organize people in teams to deliver results. Poor communicators can't lead. So you've got to build that up. It's not about, oh, I need to speak. And communication is not about spring English. No. Sometimes if you want to talk for pidgin English, you go talk for pidgin English if that's what will send your message. You've got to be flexible. There's nothing wrong that says you cannot speak Ibi very fluently and speak fluent English and speak pidgin. Move between all of them seamlessly. There's nothing wrong in speaking in WhatsApp, this thing, or LOL and whatever. You just have to have the capacity to be able to change when you're writing formal language. Because if you don't, you put yourself in trouble. So again, as a principal, I force myself to write full because I know when you start to do something, it becomes behavior. When you do something constantly over time, it becomes behavior. Unless you have built the capacity to switch between seamlessly, you will punish yourself. So those things are critical. Emotional intelligence. Hey, today somebody abused me. You go and report. Somebody say, what can you deal with yourself? Resilience. Everybody faces shocks. The world is not against you. The world is not. Don't feel like a victim. This thing happened. Somebody is winching me. This thing happened. Somebody is doing that. You don't have the capacity to deal with stress. Resilience, agility, functional mastery. It means whatever profession you are in, do you build the expertise for that? And most of all, recognize that the world is about solving problems. If you cook food and sell, you are solving the problem of nutrition, because there's somebody who either doesn't have the time to cook for himself and he's decided to say, I'm willing to pay an extra cost because it's cheaper to cook in your house than to go to a restaurant. Why does somebody make that choice? The person feels, I don't have enough time. You are stepping in the gap to provide that. It's cheaper to find a nail to nail my shoes, but I don't have time. I either learn it to do it well. If somebody has done that, guess what? The person will charge a premium for it. The man carrying his box and going around charges 20 naira, 50 naira. If you go to Lady Cobbler in Lagos, they just hammer one nail in your shoe, 600 naira. Whether you like it or not, you will pay the 600 naira. So, it's to think of the areas and think of the opportunities that abound within the environment. Commissioner has told you guys that there's a deep sea port coming. So how many people understand what is required for the deep sea port? What are the skills required? How many people are building towards that? When the banking consolidation started, I spoke to a couple of young people who were in the bank as well. And I said, for any one of you who can, go and learn French. Why are you saying that? I said, because you are awash with a lot of capital. Once you have capital, the next thing the banks will be thinking of is expansion. In West Africa, there are only 5 countries that are Anglophone. The rest are Francophone. Who is going to help them serve in those places? 2 years later, I ran into one of the young men. I didn't even know he was the one that stopped me. And he said, look, this thing that you said has actually come to pass. I said, what happened? He went and started taking basic French lessons. And then it was Diamond Bank. They wanted to expand to Benin Republic, and they were now looking for people within the bank that could speak French. That's how he got transferred to Benin Republic. Do you think of the opportunities that abound, and you focus on building the skills in those areas? Got to know yourself and the ability to self-control. Now, this is one of my best. There are 3 things I have on my wall, always for the past 20 years. This one is critical. There's no dignity so impressive and no independence quite so important as living within your means. I don't owe anybody any money. When I came back from Dakar, everybody said, all your peers and mates are living on the island. I said, sorry, I will live where. So the house on the island costs 4 times the house that I have. But you know what? It allows me to pay for the kind of school that I want for my child. So when you look at it, people say, you have your 3 children in this school. That means you must be. No. I have balanced everything within my means. Challenge is when you start to go outside. It doesn't mean I don't have desires. Like Charles said, you know, you have to go and play football in a competition. I will prepare for that. I will save for that. Because aside from that, I am not going to pop champagne at the most expensive drink that I like is Guinness. 250 naira small bottle near my house. I am living within my means. You've got to learn how to do that. What we'll find is that you will have the opportunity because things will be at you. Your character will be tested. If you build an insatiable appetite for things that are outside of your means, you're going to struggle. It doesn't mean you don't have aspirations. I have aspirations, I keep them there, and I know they exist, but I tell myself they're in a parking lot. You know, coming soon, I remind myself, coming soon to a theater near you, because I know that I will get to that point. So, it will help you focus on yourself. You've got to build persistence and resilience. It is not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent. It is the one that is the most adaptable to change. That applies to all of us. You know, there are some jobs today that are extinct. Some people, but I am still amazed that young people come and say, what do I want to do? I want to do admin work. I say, what is admin work? Your phone will do. The moment I booked my ticket, Google had picked it up and put it in my calendar and said, you are traveling so date. Do I need a PA again? Your PA role is extinct. So what will you do? And the last couple of roles I've done, I've had PAs, and you know, I told one of them, the moment I got into the role, I told her, because I have an open door policy. So you don't need to book an appointment to see me. Anybody who wants to see me, so long as I'm in the office and I don't have an appointment with anybody, you can come in. So you're not booking an appointment for me. You're not. So I told her, I said, look, in another 1 or 2 years' time, the company will be looking and they'll say, this person doesn't have a job. I said, so I'm giving you time to go and learn. Go to HR, tell them that you want to do this other job. Spend some time with them. Go and meet this person. Say, I'm volunteering to help you work. I said, because in 2 years' time, you will wake up one morning and find out that your job does not exist. So how do you do that? How do you manage that? Nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. We've seen so many people that are talented. You know, again, another example I give to young people who have lofty dreams, some of these exotic careers. So how many churches exist in Uyo? Roughly, an estimate. How many? More than 2,000, right? So let's just, in a church, how many people are in the choir? What's the average size of the choir? 50. Okay, so let's use 50. So 50 times 2,000 is how many? 100,000. So there are 100,000 people who know how to sing and who sing every week, because they do rehearsal and they sing in church every week. Can we count of Akwa Ibom musicians that have lasted 10 years? 5 that have lasted 10 years and are successful and doing well. 5. No, because the church, like in the US, everywhere, is the church that provides raw material from the music world. How many musicians have lasted more than 5 years at the top of their career? None. Right? It takes, the point I'm trying to make is that it takes more than talent. No. The point I'm trying to make is that it takes a lot more than talent. Meanwhile, there are people who are aspiring. Football is 30 first-team players in any football club in the UK, right? There are 20 teams in the Premiership, so that's 600 places. The population of the UK is 66 million, about half of them are men. And then Europe, which anybody who is European is entitled to play there, is about 420 million. So how many people do you think are vying for those 600 jobs? You probably have like 40 million if you take males between the age of 18 and 35 that are playing. What do you think will make you one of the 600 out of those 40 million people in Europe? And you then now add the African population and the Latin American and Asian population that also want to go and play in the Premiership. Do you think only talent is enough to make you survive in that role? It's not. It takes a lot more than talent. Genius, unrewarded genius, almost a proverb. We have a lot of people who have first class that are derelicts today. It's not about how smart you are. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. The slogan "Press On" has always solved and will always solve the challenge of the human race. Is that person who is not willing to give up, who is willing to continue, who is saying, you know what, let me try one more time. That's the person who makes it out. And that person that is willing to adapt because things are changing, you've got to be conscious of those changes. You've got to understand what those changes mean. Not on the soft. The fact that things are changing. And of course, critical to stay humble. The service of other people. True humility is staying true regardless of how much you know. Because you know what? Anything that is theory today is just something waiting to be disproved. When I did chemistry, the periodic table had a certain number of elements. Today it has changed. If you're not opening your mind to new learning, you will stay where you are. And humility simply makes you understand that the person next to you has something to offer. And that's why you should treat, whether it's the gate man or the security or the house girl, or every person has something to offer. That start to understand that. So, to summarize, the world today and environment is more complex and is creating a lot of opportunities and challenges, but life is about choices. And wherever you are in your life is a consequence of your choices or what you allow people to make. Our choices will be better if we understand who we are and why we exist. It takes a lot of courage for you to be who you are. Your challenge is, how do I become the best me? You've got to focus on a mindset of excellence and continuous improvement. You've got to seek for knowledge and look for how to apply that knowledge so that you build the right skills. You've got to stay humble so it helps you to manage success, and you've got to build self-control to manage your success. And most of all, in the new world that we face today, persistence, resilience, and agility are critical for sustained success. These are principles you can apply either to career, personal life, or to right? If you apply them, you will find out that they work for you. Like I said, as a man thinketh, so he is. You know, somebody told a story. An old man was said to be very wise, and he always had an answer for something. So a group of young people came, and they wanted to disprove to him that he was smart. So they had a bird, and the guy said, well, they told us, old man, that you have an answer to anything. So the idea was they will hide the bird in the back and tell him, okay, I have this bird in my hand. Can you tell me whether it is dead or it is alive? And the young man had in his mind, he says, look, if the man says it is alive, I will squeeze it and kill it and then show him that it's dead. If he says this is dead, I will just bring it out and show him he's alive. Either way, he will be wrong. So when they asked the old man looked at him, shook his head and said, young man, my only answer is this: whether the bird is alive or dead, it is in your hands. That's the choice for you in your career. Whatever you become is in your hands. Thank you for your attention. So I guess there will be questions, we can answer. Yeah, go ahead. Alex. Okay. Check alexandergoma.com. You'll probably see a couple of things that we can have a conversation after this event. Okay? Yes, in a situation like that, your challenge is actually how do you sell the benefits of your proposal, right? And I think it's one of the biggest challenges most people have. We focus on the things we're doing and not the benefits, right? So if you go to your boss and say, I think we should change how we're doing this, your boss might likely say no, even if it's a fantastic idea. You're the one that knows what it is. The question is, are you speaking from the chairman or the board's perspective? Nobody, knowing that this your idea is going to save the company X million naira, will say no. Or this is going to increase our sales by 20%, is going to say no. Most times what we do is we sell the thing we're doing rather than selling benefits. And if you approach it from benefits, you'll probably find out that you have a better understanding of the opportunity. I'll give a real life example. In my last job we had, we were going to make changes to one of our product packages because it was expensive for us to import the packaging for the baby pack. And so we found a local supplier that could do that for us. And we agreed we were going to do it. So I left the team because we had the meeting in Ghana. I left the team and I came back to Nigeria. When they came back and the next day I said, okay, how do we progress? They said, no, everything has changed. The area director said we should change it back to the old. They said they don't like the design, they don't like this, they don't like. I said, what did you guys sell across to her? They said, we tried to explain this and that. I said, hold on. So I went to the area. I just wrote a one-line email to the area director. I said, dear Helen, I understand that you've decided that we should do this. Are you aware that by your decision you are saying that 23% gross margin is better than 34? In 5 minutes I got a reply to say, no, this is not what I mean. I leave it in your hands. You speak to the other MDs. Whatever you agree is final. In 5 minutes time we changed what we want. So I went back to the team. I asked them, what did you sell? They were selling the pack. They were selling the design. They were selling this. They were selling, no. The business benefit of changing that meant we'll go from 23% gross margin to 34. And that's what they didn't sell. So if you are trying to convince anyone to agree to your idea, you've got to think of the benefit for them. I've used the same example for parents, children. You want to convince your father that I need to do this. I need to be given permission to do this. I want to do this. We always talk from our own perspective. We don't talk from the benefits that they will get. I can assure you that most times, not every sale goes 100%, but most times if you speak from the other person's perspective, you will get an answer. For you to be able to do that, you've got to understand their needs, the opportunities that abound in front of them, and the constraints that they're having to deal with. Because sometimes a business might make a decision because there are certain constraints that are open to the guy at the top, but nobody else knows. So sometimes we think, these guys at the top, don't they know why they're making this kind of decision? They might be making a decision because there's a certain constraint. So your idea, if it creates a benefit, addresses the constraints that they have, takes advantage of opportunities that abound in the market, you get a yes. If any of those answers are not in place, you're most likely going to get a pushback. Now, what the pushback means is you go back to find a solution to that constraint. And that's why persistence is key. Because at some point, you may find out that there might be a need or an opportunity. Again, long time ago when I was in the factory, we had a bottling plant and the carbon dioxide chilling plant was faulty. So we were not bottling. But I went to tell my boss, I said, look, I think we can bottle without the chilling plant and we'll still hit our quality parameter. He said, no. I said, no, the theory is this is why you use your chilling plant, because you can't store carbon dioxide in its gaseous form. You won't store the right quantity. That's why you have to chill. But if we did a small batch, if we started the plant, when the pressure is at a point where it's going to self-release, we start bottling. He said, no. So we didn't do it. And then he went on leave. So I went to his boss. I told Oga, we are sitting here, no production, we will not have any. He said, what? I said, I think we can produce. He said, are you sure? I said, yeah. I said, let's do a small batch to test. So we did, instead of 5,000 liter batch, we did a 1,000 liter batch, and we bottled. We tested, everything was fine. My boss heard from his lead. He came to the factory the next day. And the first thing he did was to go to the reference store where for every batch that we produce, we keep a set of reference sample. So when we have a problem, we can always match to say, is it from this batch? Took reference samples, came to look at our quality control book, because he felt maybe we doctored the books. He analyzed it, he saw the results. Until I left that business, they didn't fix the CO2 plant. That was what they were doing. So sometimes you've got to be bold to say, you know what, this is what it means. Now, being bold also means you have to learn how to communicate. Sometimes some of us have the answers, but we don't know how to couch the answer in a manner that allows us to get audience. So couching your communication, how you sell your idea is critical. If there's any other advice I'll give everyone here, go and learn how to sell. It is one skill that is critical for every aspect of life, because at every point you are selling. You're either selling an idea, you're selling a concept, or you're selling a proposal. You want the girl to marry you, you are selling. You don't have money in your pocket. Why would she say yes? You are selling, right? So you've got to learn how to sell. Does that answer you? So what's your question? Okay, again, for communication, the principle for me is very simple. There's one underlying principle that governs communication. Seek ye first to understand, and then to be understood. So if you understand their context and how they want to be spoken to, right, then you can speak to them. How many of us, when we want to buy suya in the evening, we go to, even though we don't know Hausa, we say, Malam Yayade, What happens when we do that? They smile back, you get an extra, sometimes they might do that. Because everyone, look, we're human beings, we're creatures of community. We're looking for something that governs us together. So you've got to speak in the language, right, that the person understands. If I enter a bar now and I see people I don't know, but I see somebody wearing an Arsenal shirt, what do you think that will happen? If I go and say, Gunners, the person will feel that he's found it, even though there's nothing. I am speaking at that time to something that appeals to him. So you've got to find something that appeals to him, to them, to be able to do that. The second thing is that you've got to find what is the benefit for them. What is the purpose of your serving them? What's the benefit? What will they get out? If you don't paint that clearly for them and you put tangible steps, right, that's what starts to give them faith that, okay, this thing is going to happen, this thing is, and then there will be more trust. Once there's trust, the window of communication opens. If there's no trust, the window is closed, right? So it's your understanding that will help them open up to you. You've got to speak their language, be a part of them. When you start looking at them as who are these villagers who can't speak English, subconsciously you will communicate that you don't feel that you're a part of them. So how are you involved in their activities? How are you involved in their local ceremonies? If I look at churches, and I'm not trying to be, the average Catholic to a village, what does he do? He goes in, he blends in, he's a part of their this thing. The average and maybe all the new church, what do we think? We're looking for the young yuppie. We run away from these guys. We don't go back. The fact that you go sit with them, right, doesn't mean that you are going to do the same things that they're doing if it's not right. After all, Jesus Christ sat and ate and drank with sinners. And he said he came for them and not for the people who are saved. That's what will open them to you. So long as you do that, you will find out open up to you, and that's when you will have the biggest impact on them, because you make them feel that they belong. As sales reps in those days, and sometimes you'll find in the market, there's gutter running here, there's this here, the man is eating one food, the soup is black, one color you've never seen, and he says, come join me. That's your first test as a salesman. If you turn your nose and say this and that, you know what? He will probably never sell with you, or he will just sell what is required. But if you are smart about it, you say, okay, I don't chop, but you know what? Make I follow bless him. And I take one and I put in my mouth, and whether it's hiding there until you find a way to come, that's for you. But by that action, you've shown him that I do not see myself as superior to you. And that's really what the essence of the communication is. So if you, right, you might know more than them, you might know more than your boss, but if you start to make him feel that I know more than you, why do you think he will listen to you? You might know more than your wife. You might be older than her, but when you try to tell her that I am the other, why do you think she will listen to you? She doesn't want that. She doesn't want somebody that will lord it over her. So if you do that, I think it will probably help. Does that answer you? Alex, once again. Yeah. I think the first thing is that you've yourself whether what you want to do is what you really want. If you have that, so write it down. And what's then the constraint? Because I think sometimes, especially when we are leaving the civil service job, because civil service job has like certainty, right? Every 2-3 years, you get promoted. You get level this, you get this, you get this, you get that. If you leave, if you work for how many years, you get your pension, right? Is it really true? I'm better off than any civil servant who started at the same time, because the private sector pension scheme is very clear, very different. I do not have to queue with anybody. I know that my money will come. The weights. So you've got to deal with the issues. So if I am afraid that I will lose income, how do you put a plan to take you into that particular thing? Some people make a decision to say, okay, I want to go start doing a business, right? Because I've started doing a business and, oh, I'm getting 50% profit. A simple example where I'm going and then I sell. I bought clothes for 5,000, I sold it at 10,000, and I sold everyone within 1 week. This thing feels like it's a good idea, Abi, and it feels like it is fast moving. There's not a problem when you're trying to sell to 5 people. You will get 100% sales, you get 100% profit. Try to sell to 1,000 people. You find 50 people that want to pay you one naira every month for the next 24 months, so you will get tired, you will lose some of that. You find some people that will come and tell you this cock and bull story, they will collect some and pay 20%, they will disappear. All of a sudden you find out that there's a different ball game selling to 20 versus selling to 1,000 people. So all those things you've got to be practical. So how am I going to take care of myself? What do you put aside and say, at this point I will break through? What I typically advise people, if you want to break through, make sure at least 2 years. Because any business enterprise that you want to give solid roots, it will not take you less than 2 years for it to be established, assuming no income. So you build that net and you say, this is what I can live on, and then I can make that transition. The second thing is, it doesn't stop you from starting that on the side to say, okay, let me practice, right? So I'm doing something, and at which point do I establish that it is big enough for it to take care of me? It's like I use the example of Maya Tafo because I know him personally. He was working, he worked for a number of years. But it got to a point as the business was growing, he now knew if I left and took that business was going to pay him what he was currently earning. So it's enough for to probably break it like that, and it might allow you deal with it. I don't know if that helps you. And then we'll come to you. Afternoon. So two things first, but let me clarify the connection so that you don't take it as an absolute fact. Everyone needs a network, right? The idea is not to focus on the network without having something of value to offer. I'm a member of the golf course in Lagos, and I see a lot of people join the golf club because they believe that, oh, when you get to the golf club, that's where all the big people are, right? And therefore you get this thing. The simple thing is that all the people who have made their money, right, the true and valuable way, recognize value. So if you come, actually in golf, they tell you, by the time I play 3 or 4 holes with you, I know your character and I know whether I will do business with you or not. So your connection should be to give you access for your value to be visible. That's the way you use it. How do I build the links that gives me access so that my value is visible? Because if you have access and you don't have, you have wasted that. So imagine, right? right? Okay, I need a job, I need a job, I need a job. Okay, fine, bring your CV. These people will test you. The first place, 11 over 100. What do I do? Okay, let me try again, let me not lose hope. I take you to the second place, 4 over 100. You think your connection to me is going to work, because the next time I see you, I'm not even going to bother. Because as far as I'm concerned, I'm wasting the space I could have given some who probably will have used the chance to give some. So I'm very careful about who I select. Somebody sent me a note on LinkedIn. So can you recommend me? I said, sorry, no, I don't give recommendations frivolously. Unless I've worked with you, unless I can prove to your character and integrity, I'm not going to write anything. I don't do it because I know you from a distance. So, right to build connections, but it's also to be clear. Like you said, the example is one of the reasons why you don't need. Because if somebody wants to do something for you, he doesn't have to do it in the hotel room. He has no business getting that. You know clearly where the direction is. One of the challenges I find, and since you're a student, I will probably help you address it, because I was president of biochemistry student when I was in school myself. In those, again, we go with our mindset that we want this, right? We want to do events that are grand, and so we need a lot of funding. That sometimes when you look at it, we're trying to tick the boxes rather than think of what will truly impact the students. Now, there are people that might be willing to do stuff for free, and yet we don't go to them, but we want somebody to give us money that will brand the hall and will give. That's not where the real value is. So when you go to them, because people come and say, oh, we're advertising to them. I say, who told you that you're my target audience? Because every brand has its core target. So if you're not going even with style to say, I know this brand, they are targeting students, therefore this will appeal to them. So this is what we're offering you, an opportunity to make ex-students, it's easier for you to sell your case. Again, why I say it's important to understand how to. So sometimes there's a lot of grandstanding, right, within students' bodies. Some of the things I did were not popular when I was, because people wanted the populist things, I refused to do the populist things. What will add more value to your students is to get resource people that can help. How much does it cost to get those resource people? There are people who are witty and willing to do stuff. Do stuff for Lagos Business School. I wrote to one of the lecturers in my former school to say, okay, if I do it for free for Lagos Business School, why can't I do it for my alma mater, Unipo? It's over 1.5 years. I'm still waiting for them to respond for something I'm going to come and do. So you have to find somebody who will do the job you're doing. You have to recruit, right? And again, it's, yes, yours is not, but it's also the same thing about starting a business. Advice for those. If you want your business to grow, start setting the right structures. Today, your business depends on you. What if you're not there? So who starts, okay, today you're the salesman, you're the chief accountant, you're the depot officer, you're this, you're that. So you have a board, but who is going to do the things that you're doing? So you've probably got to think about succession, and who amongst the team is able to do what you were doing? Who has the same vision or drive to do it to the way that you want to do it? Second thing is, what can you do from afar? Technology makes it easier for you to be able to have, do you have some processes or things that can ensure or reports or things that they do that can ensure that, okay, you're abreast of what is happening, and therefore you can still, the fact that you're doing a program and you're away doesn't mean that you cannot participate. But the right structure and the right, there are tools that should make it easier for you to be able to do that. But I guess the real question is succession planning. Him, and then we'll come to. Yeah. Yes. Well, you just accept it as it is. Sometimes that's what it is. Have you seen matches where you have a team, 20 shots on target, 35 shots off target, the other team has 1 shot on target, and the match ends 1-0? What do? Chelsea, Man U, first 30 minutes, what could the result have been? It could have been 3-0 in favor of Chelsea. How did it end? 4-0. If you look at that match, what will you assume? That these guys were completely humiliated, right? What I tell people is, and it's a discipline to get used to, I always look underneath the numbers. So even for my salespeople, I tell them, look, sorry, that you have the highest sales does not mean you'll be promoted first. Because what I'm looking for is not somebody who produces results only. I want somebody who produces results, but I want somebody who can produce results through others, because that's what an area manager is. And I want somebody who understands what the key drivers of real results are. So if I just use the football analogy, how do you know whether your team has a chance to win? Do we have better ball possession? Do we have more shots on target? Do we concede the ball less? If you measure these metrics, at the end of the game, you can look at your guys and say, you know what? We played well today. It could have gone in our favor. It didn't. You know, this is one of the days where you clap for your team and say nothing to say. It's not every time you have a loss, you go and have a motivational talk with your team. There's a day you say, guys, hard luck today. You did well. This is it. And there's a game where you will have won 4-0 and say, guys, let's sit and have talk. We were lucky today because we escaped through the skin of our teeth. If these guys has used all their life, they say we could have lost, right? So how do we prevent this from happening again? So you've won, but you have to do that. And sometimes it's like that. Now look at coaches. They get fired when the result is bad. But while the coach is fired, somebody is waiting to hire him. Why do you think that happens? Because the people recognize that except the person is inherently bad, it is not always about the person. We've got to get rid of this superhero, Superman concept or mindset that means that the results are because I am a superhero. No. Sometimes things can gel and happen because everything has happened, but also the lines have fallen for you in the right places. We've got to be humble enough to understand that. But the only way to understand that is by doing a checklist of the underlying drivers of sales. So I tell my people, if our sales are bad, the first thing I look at, do we have the right distribution? Do we have the right pricing? Do we have the right visibility? Are we covering the right outlets? Those are the results for me that are more important than you hit your target. Because those results tell me that tomorrow you will sell again. But the guy who sells to one person and exceeds his target and doesn't have distribution, I know that next month we will not be able to sell to that customer. Now, it takes a lot of courage for you to stand up and say, that's what you're going. And it's always a tough challenge or balance, because how do you hold yourself to account, and how do you let yourself know that, okay? And the only way to do that is by metrics. If you're measuring the right things, you can say, okay, you know what, we played well, we had all the ball possession, we had all the shots at goal, we had only one mistake, and in that one mistake, they scored the one goal. You're not going to beat up the guys. You're just going to tell them, guys, hard luck. Next time, we've got to work on making sure that our chances are converted. And that's it, end of story. No long discussion. But that's the way life is. That's the way. Why does one car get an accident and one does not? Why is it that it's when it's your time to cross that the drunk driver decides to go there? Sometimes we don't know. Oh, sorry, he's been waiting to ask. Yeah. Yes, the government has a role to play. The question is, if the government doesn't play its role, what are we going to do? Are you going to fold your arms and pretend or blame the government? Right? So, on entrepreneurship, right? It's, I think businesses are built by people who decide they want to solve a problem, right? And you've got to be conscious sometimes that people, if you talk to most entrepreneurs, they really do not set out to say I'm an entrepreneur. So I find it when with the job description entrepreneur, the man carrying a box and fixing people's shoes on the street, is he an entrepreneur? He's working for himself, right? And I think we've got to recognize that there are different kinds of jobs, right? Even when you run your own business, you're working for, it has a life of its own. There's just being able to separate it. There's a difference as an entity on its own and the income you derive because you're a major shareholder, right? If you don't have the right skills, you will struggle. Now, you can go and check the facts. Most of the people who have been successful in building big businesses tend to be people in their mid-30s, 40s. Why? Because sometimes they've had the benefit of having experience somewhere else, excuse me, of working for somebody, getting the experience, and through this experience their eyes begin to be open about what the opportunities are, but they also build all the right skills and contacts or whatever for them to be able to now run a business properly. Else what you will find is that I've seen a lot of people, okay, there's a craze for entrepreneurship, so they resign, they leave their job, and then 2 years later they're coming back looking for paid employment because they're not able to make it. Not everybody will be able to do that. So, the challenge for everyone is, as you're working, what skills are you building? You'll be amazed at the number of people who work in finance, right, but do not know how to raise money. And these guys have been in finance all their life. What do? They are just used to signing that book, filling that book, and that's all. They don't think of what could be possible. The biggest tragedy for me is when I see a former salesperson go and open a distribution company and it collapses after a few years. Because it tells me that your fundamentals were not solid. If you were coming from something that you were doing before, and you cannot run a proper business, right? So, the government, yes, we're waiting for the government to do that. But you know what? If you go on the net, there are 1,001 courses that are available. This event is free of charge. Now, how many people signed up to that? Not a lot of people. There are some people watching Z World at this moment. That's their choice, right? So, life is about choices. You can choose to be somewhere because that's what you want to do. The data that you use for Facebook and chat and whatever, you can go to Coursera, you can go to different things that you want to learn. Even at this level, you know, we had a board meeting on Tuesday. Something came up, the auditors raised this there, and somebody was asking about the concept. I didn't understand it, but immediately in that meeting, I went in, I Googled, I started it, and immediately I left the meeting. I had like 5 pages. As of today, I can teach somebody what that concept is. As of Tuesday, I didn't know what it was. But the option is I could be chatting at the same time, rather than going to find out, oh, how do I understand it? I don't need it for today, I don't need it for my job, but maybe I might need it sometime in the future. So we can't wait for the government, right? We have to take it in your hands. If you wait for the government, you will excuse and blame the government for why you have that capacity. So you've got to have a plan at the beginning, and in your planning, you've got to have what-if scenarios, because it's all those scenarios, and you've got to have metrics. Again, like I said, if you use the first metric on top, which is I am selling, right, you will find it difficult to make choices. So again, I'll give one or two real-life examples. When I joined Guinness, one of the brands we had that was struggling at that time was Hap. But I knew historically, because I'd gone to look at the numbers, that at a point, Hap was 1 million hectoliters. So I said, no, it's not possible that today we're talking about 400 and this. So if we did the right thing, because everybody was just focused, the number is this. So what do we have to do? Let's go back, let's build distribution, let's build cold availability, let's do this. So and I said, this is what we're going to do. And we started, of course, month one. The results didn't show. There are some people, month one, they are already asking. Now, the simplest analogy I can give is this. When a farmer plants a seed in the ground, does he go and dig it to see whether it's growing or not? Why doesn't he do that? He knows that this seed, after 4 days, will start to germinate. That's where your knowledge comes to play. And in terms of your planning, when you're planning, what kind of lead times do you give? How long does for this kind of business to actually start to yield fruit? Most times we're doing a business, but we're taking the Yahoo mindset, because the return is today, to assume that that's how long it's going to take. So we create unnecessary pressure for ourselves. Even when we're developing ourselves, I see people, I constantly have to remind some of the, I said, you're doing okay. No, I am not doing okay. I'm not, no, for where you are and the level of skill that you are, this is okay. And then everybody started saying, oh, but you're saying this brand is going to grow. It took us over 7 months before we started to see a small sign. But each time I told them, and we had a guy from South Africa, and he'll tell me sometimes teasingly when we're in our regional meeting, Alex, these are your green shoots that you're seeing. You're the only one seeing it, or we can't see it anywhere. We can't see it anywhere. Cut long story short, in 3 years, we tripled the size of that brand. But the first 9 months were tough. It didn't show sign of. But if you look underneath the fundamentals, you'll see growth. We had another brand. They wanted to scrap it. We were in a conference with our executive team in London. And they had made up their mind they were going to scrap it. And I said, sorry, no, we can't scrap it because I believe this brand has potential. So they said, okay, they took away all their marketing. I said, take it away. We will grow this brand. A year later, the brand was growing at 800%. It was the fastest growing brand in Africa. So the vice president pulled me when he came to Nigeria. We were actually at Calabar. Alex, what gave you the confidence to believe that it would grow? I said it wasn't about confidence. It's just go underneath the surface. Look at the fundamentals. In all testing, quality of beer beats everything, right? Our pricing was wrong, so we have to fix the pricing. Availability was wrong, you have to fix availability. I said those are the things we did. We didn't do anything clever. And guess what? It became the fastest growing brand within the context. So it's planning that puts you in problem sometimes, because you may have expectation that 6 months. There's a point where you've got to out to say this will not work. Now the mistake people think is that you think big people make mistakes, right? Because they're successful. This is one thing I always tell my team. So we have one of our brands. When we launched a sub-brand, in 5 years, that sub-brand became like 5.5 billion naira in 5 years. Every time, what I tell my team, every 5 years, can we find something like that? Now, for you to find something like that, you're going to try 20. That one success is what pays for all the 20 things. But you have to keep on trying. But you have to know where there's some things, you call it off. There's some things you say, we bite the bullet. Because you've already measured to say, if we get to this stage, I am going to bite the bullet. So I think you've got to have that in your planning stage to say, so it shouldn't be something that happens after the fact. If I get to this point and I don't see this, this is what I'm going to do. So once you do those kind of scenarios, you know know when to give. And you are the only person that will know for any specific project when to give up. Because I can't tell you from outside. The point where I'm telling you from outside, you may have been at the point of breakthrough. How many times when you're trying to break a stone do you have to hit it? Does anybody know the number of times? But the guy who is trying to break it does what? He keeps at it one at a time. Is it the last one that broke the rock, or is it a cumulative effect of that? You don't know. And if anyone tells you that he knows, the person will be having 100% success all the time. There's no business in the world that has been successful at every single thing they have done. The only thing is that the successes are large enough to pay for the cost of all the other things. And those things are not failures. They are treated as lessons. In one of the stories I read in Harvard Business Review a long time ago, there was an executive who made a mistake that cost the business $10 million in the US. So he went to write his letter of resignation to give the chairman of the company. And the chairman looked at him and said, "Sorry, young man, you're not going anywhere. You've just cost me $10 million. I don't want somebody else to benefit from the cost of this lesson. Just assume that you've taken a $10 million education. You will work here and get over it and make it better." Not many people think from that perspective. And he tore the guy's letter of resignation, and the guy continued to work. Big companies make a lot of mistakes, but they have a lot of successes. That's why it covers for all those mistakes. If I call some big companies and call the number of brands they have, you might know 4 or 5. Do you know the number they've launched and relaunched that have failed? There's so many. But the ones that have succeeded are big enough to pay for that. That's what you've got to think of. How do you generate so many ideas or things such that, you know what, all you need is one breakthrough. Is that one breakthrough that will pay the price of all the other lessons. And don't see them as failures. Just see them as expensive lessons. So, how much more time do we have, Charles? Yeah, I'm here every time, but... Okay. Okay, we take, well, there are people who are still so fine. You've got to look at what each side does for you, right? First thing is to realize that you can't give what you don't have. So when you have a job, right, your job is what gives you content and experience and opportunities. Because if you talk to teenagers or people alone just by nice words, and that's the difference sometimes with, you say, motivation, who tell you what to do, but haven't really walked in those shoes, right? Your experiences is what creates the content, right? And then the skill that you have is now how you apply it. You've got to find a balance, because you recognize that your work is what fits you, takes care of you, gives you an opportunity. So if you translate it from that perspective, right, and then, okay, how much time do I cover? You've got to be disciplined and probably decide that this is what I will do. Now, again, I don't recommend it for anyone. You have to have the courage to decide the way you do. Everybody different. In my last role, I was the only person in the board that the MD, if he calls me in the evening, will apologize for taking my time. I made it clear from day one that it's my... Now, I come to work weekends, but I say I come to work because I have chosen to, not because it's mandatory. I will respond to an email because I have chosen to, not because you've made it mandatory. But you've got to be able to be strong enough to say you can withstand that, because not everybody can do that, right? So it's your choice to say, look, this is what I expect. When I joined my company, Saturdays they used to set meetings. I told them, Saturday I play football. I will not come for any meeting that you set on a Saturday, period. So it's a choice. Some people are able to do. People will say, if I do this now, okay. No, I come to work early. Now it doesn't mean every Saturday. There are some meetings where it becomes imperative you have to go on a Saturday. I show up, or I say, you know what? Okay, put the time in after work. Put the time in 11 o'clock. Put the time in 12 o'clock. So I'll have played my football. I'll have drunk this one bottle of beer. Then we will go and do the meeting later. So you have to be comfortable. The reason why I spent a lot of emphasis on courage is a lot of these decisions are within your answer. I can't choose for you because I can't tell you which plays a lot more, which is heavier for you. Life is about trade-offs. What are you willing to trade off? Right? Am I willing to trade off time off work for me to be able to do that? Or at which point will I start to tilt towards where you say, I can do that activity? So it's something that you have to decide for yourself. What are you willing to trade off? What is the most important thing for you? That's the question you have to answer. Once you answer that, you'll find out that it's easier for you. Sometimes when you're serving other people, it's easy to be, you want to give everything, right? You've got to learn to manage your energy, or else you'll break down. The world is full of indispensable people. Nobody is indispensable. Again, the other thing I advise people, try to be valuable, not indispensable. If you work for me and you are indispensable, I will see you as a risk. I will try to break down your job, because if the organization so depends on one person, right, and without you it can't function, then you're a risk to me. So I will break down the risk. So try to be valuable, right? Because the graveyard is full of indispensable people. We will all go, whether we like it or not. Yes, we were speaking on. There's nothing that is not valuable, but the value is in the eye of the value. So, right? If I write fantastic poems, there are people who will pay for it and use it as songs. If they use it as songs, you make see the people who are musicians making tons of money. We don't see the guys in the background who are the songwriters, who are using their poetry or whatever skills, and they're making tons of money, and they're moving around without nobody disturbing them. But there's a choice. If you want to be in the limelight, some people say, oh, because I'm a songwriter, I want to now go and sing, and I want to also sing. So there's no knowledge that is wasted. What you've got to understand is that the value ascribed to the thing you offer is what the people are willing to pay for. That's why the same rice, right? Madam Okon corner is 200 naira. Sweet Sensation is 1,500 naira. Chinese restaurant is 15,000 naira. It's the same rice, the same meat from the same market. The Chinese restaurant is not a China man cooking it. It's still Okon that is inside the kitchen of the Chinese restaurant. But it is 15,000 naira. They all know how to cook. If the benefit that you offer is both emotional and tangible, you will charge a higher price. Does that answer you? And then we'll come to this side. Let's take, and then we'll move to this. Family planning. You plan your family, you remove them. It's not complex. I think we're very emotional when it comes to people. And yes, I can tell you, even as a business leader, the most difficult decision for me anytime is to fire somebody. Because I understand in society, one person is not taking care of himself. You are taking care of other people, and therefore, same time, how I balance it is very simple. It's either I allow that one person and his family, or there are 300 other workers whose family will end up suffering if we don't fix the road. Now, what's the issue? Is the issue that of knowledge you can give the person, right? Is that the skill? You can create the opportunity for the person to practice and build the skill. But the last one is the most difficult and the most painful, because you can't give someone the attitude. Attitude is intrinsic. Attitude is born from your thinking. And that's why I spend a lot of time talking about thinking. If you have somebody who has right knowledge, right skills, but the wrong attitude, it will destroy your team. And no matter how long you try to change the, if the person is not willing to change from inside, it's a futile. And that's the most difficult. So most times, when we're looking for attitude, and we look for attitude through the results you have delivered, through your tone and everything that you say. So that's what tells us whether this person is will you get it right? No, you will not. But when you make a mistake, you've got to be honest to raise up your hand and say you've made a mistake, and you caught the person. Now, it's tough, I can tell you. I can tell you point blank, you are fired and you have to go or write your resignation and you have to leave. And I can go inside my office and go and beat myself up, because I know that it's not an easy. But the only way I see it is you have a burden of responsibility to the rest of the team and to your stakeholders who are dependent on you to get the result. If you accept that, it is very easy for mediocrity to start to set in. I learned that very early in my career. We were recruiting for Procter & Gamble. We'd run tests. There's a standard test you write for P&G all over the world, and it's the same set of questions. We run tests to recruit people, and we could not find. The cutoff point was 31 out of 50. And we got this guy who got 30. After we've tried and tried and tried. And so I went to my boss and I said, look, we've got this guy who got 30. And maybe we can make an adjustment to allow for this guy. And he asked the question, he said, look, if that's your call, I will be okay with it. He said, but what happens next time when you get a 29? And then 28, and then 27? And that's how you degrade the value. And I backed off. I said, I'm fine. And ever since, I learned that lesson. So, with team, don't compromise. If you spend time to train them, spend time to give them the right development, but attitude, I can tell you, is always tough to change, so take the person out. It's better for you in the long term. But in taking the person out, do it with dignity. Let the person understand why, and so that way the person can find improvement elsewhere. The fact that you're fired today does not mean that, again, when I moved, the very first week, there was a lady, she was a graduate trainee, and they just said to me, you have to sack her. I said, why? That she's not good. I said, why did the previous person not sack her? I said, why did you wait for me? So I said, okay, I'll give her a chance, 6 months. In the 6 months, I could see why she doesn't deserve to be in the team. And I had an option, because the next part of her traineeship, she was going to go into regional marketing. So I called her and I said, look, I've assessed you, and I don't think that you're going to come out of this program right. So I want to give you an option. There's an option. The program is supposed to be 2 years. I will pay you for the balance of the program. So you have time to go and find something that is good enough for you, right? That matches who you are as a person. or I can send you to go to these guys, but in my recommendation, this is what I'm going to write, so you know up front. I'm writing to them, I don't think you have the capacity to go through this. She said she wanted to try this and that. I said, okay, fine. Did. And after 2 months, the boss of that unit came to me and said, with this person. And one day she came to me and said, look, I want to take the second option you offered. So I offered her and she took it and she left. 2 months later, she got a job in a state-owned company, less rigor. She came to see us in the office one day, she was smiling. What's happening? She goes to work at 8, she closes at 4. Because it's a state-owned company, all the things we were doing, she just introduces one small one, they think she's a superstar, and everything is working fantastic for her. So, you've got to do things with dignity, but you've got to make the right call, because if you do it out of pity or emotion, you'll end up destroying the person in the long run. So, sometimes I see people who try to promote somebody because you think you are helping him. Don't allow yourself to be promoted to your level of incompetence, because you'll be sacked. Where you are, you're good enough. I'm a sales rep. I'm doing well. I'm selling well. I don't know how to manage people. I don't know how to manage the tension. Oh, but I want to be promoted because I like the car. I like the title, area manager. Then you're promoted. And you're still doing the same things you're doing as a rep. They will fire you after 1 year. They won't ask you to go back because it's going to be demotivating. So you'll be sacked. So, man, know thyself is not a curse. Know your limits and live with that. We'll take this guy and these two guys have been raising their hands, so we'll take them and then we will close. This. Remember this quote, those who did biology or this thing, evolution, the theory of evolution, right? It is about the most adaptable. So, it's life and nature, right? There's also an African saying that in the morning, in Africa, in the wild, there's a lion that wakes up knowing that it has to run faster than the slowest gazelle, or else it will be hungry. And every morning, there's a gazelle that knows it has to run faster than any lion, or else it will end up as dinner. And so whether you're a lion or a gazelle, you have to be running.
So the next thing I've learned is that by way of common, whether when we do the right or the wrong, when we do the best we can, the result is likely to be there back.
Yeah.
And the next thing I want to say, the first person that came with first results
Who said? The beer is working. A bit of weight, gravitas.
Reference and attainments, degrees of certificates, and so many other things. And you see those letters. I want to ask that. What is
Secret, very simply, again, like I said, it's a couple of years, maybe about 20 years ago, right? I went to watch a football match between St. Greg's Old Boys and the British High Commission. And when they were playing, there was this man, he was about 55, 60 years old. And he played for 70 minutes. And then there was a young guy who came, he was about 30 years old, came with a power bike. After 10 minutes, he was struggling to breathe. So I asked myself, who do I want to be like? Is this guy who is 55 or this guy who is 35 and cannot run? And then we didn't have all this Nike Adidas shop. My boss was English, he was traveling. I still remember I gave him 25 pounds to help me buy a pair of boots, and I started playing football twice a week. And ever since then, I still have. Today I was to play, not for the fact that I was catching a flight. So I play football every week. I play golf once or twice a week. And then I walk every morning when I wake up. Some days if I don't feel like it, but I'll walk for at least 30 to 45 minutes before I shower and go to work. So I just walk around my estate for at least 40. Your body is your factory. You've got to keep and maintain your factory if you want to be operating at the best or optimal level. So I've taken that as a principle, which is why I want to do that. But there's a point you raised, and I just want to add something. The point around whether things are good or bad. And again, I'm probably going to use an example from the scriptures, because I think if I asked anyone to write their career profile or the way they want their career to be, how many people will write, you ended up as prime minister, will write from favored son of my father to a slave to a prisoner and then prime minister? How many people will write that? None. But when we always think that everything will always be perfect, right? But that's Joseph's story. Now, at the point when he didn't fall for Potiphar's wife, by doing the right thing, what will he think? Will he think that, was it right for me to have stood on my right? Because some people will blame you and say, you for just green now, right? So that's why you've got to reinforce yourself. The reason why you do stuff should be because of who you are. The same thing, David. David was anointed as king as age 12. But he didn't assume the throne. He was tending sheep. How else do you learn how to care for people if you don't tend sheep? Because they can't speak. They are one of the dumbest set of animals, and you're responsible for them. It is the courage that he built in fighting a bear and a lion that he applied when he was facing Goliath. He said, the God who saved me from, because he'd gone through that. The skill in using his sling, where did it come from? It was from tending sheep. When Saul was having his issues, they sent him to the palace to go and play music. What was it? Internship. How do you learn how to be king? You are in the palace. But he was playing harp. What was he understanding and seeing what was going on in the palace? So because the moment he became king, he didn't go through any training school. So when life puts you in certain circumstances, there's a reason for it. And it may not be obvious, but there's an opportunity to learn. We've got to be conscious of that, so we don't think that we're victims, or we don't think our beliefs are wrong because those things have happened. I just wanted to raise that because you mentioned. So this guy and then this other guy, and then we'll close. What else? Yeah. You can ask, it's okay. It's not a dent on your record. It will actually be a proof of your character, because when you tell people and people see that, oh, I ran this thing, and you know what, I backed out of it because when these fundamentals were not right, and this is what I did. It's actually a test to your character. One of the biggest challenges we make, we try to go and, we doctor everything to look good. Again, it's like I use the sales guys. You go on the field, the display is fantastic. I will tell you that, come on. If everything is perfect, it means they are not buying the product. Because if they bought one, there will be hole where they bought the one from. So I know when you've doctored something. So people are not, they're not fooled, right? It's better for you to be authentic. What you've got to be prepared for will be the questions that will come as a result of that. And most of all, people would learn from that. I mean, people will respect you because they will wonder whether you've learned from that. Trying to recruit somebody into a supply chain director role recently, and we knew there's certain gaps in his experience, right? But to confirm to us whether he was the right candidate, and after we've done all this, we pulled him, myself, one of the members of the board, and I asked him a question. I said, okay, this is what we were talking about. We want this bigger role for you. Given this role, what do you think will be the areas where will be comfortable for you, and where will you struggle the most? What were we trying to check? Whether the guy was aware of where he was strong and where he was. Because if you are not, then there's a big problem. You start. I'm very clear. The guy said, I'm good at this, I'm good at this. Guess what the decision was? We will go with him because he was open and honest and understands where his weaknesses are. It's easier for you to support that kind of candidate than somebody who pretends that everything is okay and therefore you have a perfect record. So my advice is, this is what it is, but you've just got to understand what exactly it means for you. We've all made mistakes. If anyone tells you that, oh, you know what, I've launched brands and some of them have failed. But I have learned lessons from that. I've hired people and some of them have turned out to be wrong. I've learned lessons from that. So I know that but if I repeat the same mistake twice, that's where I have a problem. Last question. You know why I'm smiling? Because I'm not going to answer your question the way you expect it to be. It's one of the things that I think that, like he said, that we will have to build. So we know that there's a deep sea port. What does a deep sea port entail? What does it bring? Where in the world are there other deep sea ports? What are the industries or things that have grown in those parts of the world? What are the skills that are required to operate in those places? What exists? What does not exist? How long does it take to build a deep sea port? So while they're building that, how do I build and acquire those things? Those are the things, like you say, if you mind map those things, you'll come up with something for yourself. I think sometimes, and again it's advice to everyone, there are lots of questions that we ask sometimes that we may have the answers. And sometimes we're seeking for validation. And one thing that I do most times when I get a question like I told you, even at work, I had two people come to me to say, okay, We want this and this. So I listened to them when they finished. I then said, so why are you here? What do you want me to do? And then two of them looked at each other and started to argue. I told you so. This is what he was going to ask. We should have done this. We should have done this. We should have done. I said yes. And simple reason is for you to think critically and intensely. Every single opportunity for you to use that and then map it together. You guys don't know each other, but by coming together through this, you have an opportunity to say, okay, can we network? Can we create? You don't have to meet. You can do social media or whatever. And can we share ideas? Can somebody pull out stuff and we put it together and we start to share? Out of that, you may not all as a group, but you find that you start to have small communities of like minds, right? And that way you would reinforce yourself. Especially at this stage, you need a lot of reinforcement, especially from people who think in the same area, the same minds, just to give you the confidence so that then you can carry on by yourself. So sorry to disappoint you if I didn't give you exactly the answer that you wanted to have. But once again, I think, first of all, I want to thank Charles for the opportunity to come and share. I also want to thank you guys for your time and patience and attention. I know that taking hours on a Saturday, the first match will have been over. The second bottle of beer should have been gone down for the guys. The other, it's sacrifice. But I'm believing that if you apply some of these things to yourself, you will start to see fruits appear in your life. Wish you all the best. God bless you and thank you.
Well, my friend, my brother, we work hard and play hard together. I can't thank you enough. I feel highly honored that you honored us. And so please, can I crave your indulgence to please let's give him another round of applause. Well, one last thing before we let you go. We have some symbolic, in this part of the world, when I first came here, the first meeting I called of appointees under my territory, and after the meeting, everybody frowned. I was like, what is the problem? And they said, so nobody could tell me. Second meeting, they frowned. So eventually I asked, what is the problem? They said, there's something missing, that you must land. Now, I didn't understand. I am an appointee to do a job. You are an appointee to do the same job. So for me, you must put obstacles in my way to call meetings to do the job. So that means the day I don't have money to land, I can't call the meeting. And so I told my people, sorry, I will not land because you are appointed to do this job. So let's do the job together. So now for here, this is an initiative. And so my own form of landing for people who have spared their time, who are joining us in this crusade. I believe that in another 6 months, please, Joy, please get ready. From the same, Emmanuel Fimba, please get ready. Emmanuel Fimba. Emmanuel. Okay. Eddie Kaninum, please get ready. That's Eddie Kan. Eddie Diong. Yeah, please get ready. Eddie Diong, are you here? Nsisong Frank, please get ready. Nsisong. Ruth Ibok, are you here? Enyang Daniel. Enyang Daniel. Enyang has been a major promoter of this event. I'm seeing all his posts on social media. Edidiong Jimmy. Edidiong Jimmy. Now every other person, because of for want of time, Enekan will give you your certificates. I want to sincerely thank all of you for turning up. Please don't let this message die here. Whatever knowledge you've gained here, try and share it with the next person. Try and make it, let it be that by next time we should be looking for a bigger hall to have more people coming. My passion and the passion of my friends. I must say that, look, when I had this idea, I didn't think it would be something like this. I thought maybe I'll have 10 or 20 people. But when I shared with him particularly, when I shared with him, like, hey, just say, Charlie, I am in. Just give me a date. He was in London when we chatted. And he was like, look, once I come back, give me a date, and I'll be here, and he's here. I must sincerely thank him. Must sincerely thank all of you. Please take the message out. And Yekan will give you the, we've opened up, we're trying to open a website. We've opened up an Instagram page. We've opened up a Facebook page. We've opened up a Twitter page where we should be sharing materials. Now, the presentation materials, we deliberately did not send it because they were too heavy. Now, what we're going to do, upload them on the website and create a link so you can go there and have access to them. So rest assured that we'll load them there where you can have access to them. Because of the file size, it would have been too bulky for your phone or for your computers to download. So you're going to have that once that website is up. So thank you so very much. Thank you, Alex. I don't call him Alex. I call him Teranga. You don't know what that means. Yeah. So thank you so very much, my great good brother. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Thank you. And God bless all of you as you go back to your homes. God guide all of us.